trouble is, he's not here to make it his, and you'd be smart to let him ride, or he may cut you down to size.
I had never heard of this movie up until a few months ago when Allison, aka Obscurus Lupa, recommended it to me. After watching it, I knew I had to dedicate an episode to it. Since Lupa was the one to introduce me to it, I thought it would only make sense to cover the movie together. So here goes.
Let's do this.
Traxx is a 1988 action comedy from director Jerome Gary.
It is hilarious in more ways than one, intentionally and unintentionally.
The movie opens in Texas in 1984. Some guys are holding a pet store hostage.
Shadow Stevens kind of sounds like he barely knows his lines here.
He shot an old lady and a puppy.
Yep, it's gonna be that kind of movie. Badass loose cannon cop Traxx does what any cop would do in this situation. He rides a skateboard off the back of a car, smashes through the window of the store, and takes out the crooks.
It's awesome. I also love that the guy surrenders, but Traxx gives him another gun just so he can murder him. He probably got those fish killed too. That's classic Traxx.
It's a good thing he has a name like Traxx, otherwise I don't think he would be quite as effective. There's a new badass cop in town. He plays by his own rules and is above the law. This fall, criminals will run in fear of Ted McGillicuddy. Rated R. For going overboard, he's being yelled at by the police chief. I'm convinced that police chiefs solely exist in cop movies to either tell the rogue cops that they're off the case or to take away their badges.
Let me tell you something, Traxx. This is the 80s.
And he's down with the ladies.
This scene is also a bit pointless, since his lecture about victims and suspects having the same rights is far and away from the world the rest of the film exists in.
Suspects and victims have the same rights, even if they shoot old ladies and a puppy.
I'd like to hear that from the puppy's family.
It's such an underwhelming transition to the opening credits. Way over the top intro, then don't expect a recommendation from me, then yeah, I guess we have some credits to get to. But it is delightfully 80s.
Get the facts, or deal with Traxx.
I wish every movie had a song written with its title again. It's always fantastic.
None of these lines even mean anything. They were just grasping at words that rhymed with Traxx.
If you've fallen between the cracks, send for Traxx.
Well, two can play in that game. If you need some slacks,
Here comes Traxx.
grab a bowl of Honey Smacks.
Send them to Traxx.
Traxx gets thrown off the police force, see previous statement, so he returns to the jungles of El Salvador as a mercenary.
It's like we've entered another movie entirely. To be fair, this was a popular genre at the time, and probably entirely inappropriate for a slapstick comedy. Murder's hilarious, am I right? From killing dudes to checking himself out to killing dudes again, it is a non-stop yuck fest.
After El Salvador, he heads to the Middle East, which I'm pretty sure is the same set. Ah, the 80s, where even in the middle of a war zone, your hair will remain gloriously poofy. Rambo has taught him well.
I feel like if he ever met Samurai Cop, everyone else's hair would fall out in shame. There's just no comparison. While Samurai Cop has the gloss, Shadow has the volume.
A year later, Traxx is in Nicaragua. He's telling his friend he wants to retire from being a mercenary and bake cookies. Only problem is, he doesn't know how to cook. Sounds like the pilot for a failed TV series. Where did he get cookies in the middle of the jungle?
This scene is like the perfect example of why this movie goes from being a bad comedy into a so bad it's good comedy. Everything is played completely straight, but mixed in with ridiculous, over-the-top spoof humor. It's like it's fighting to be two different movies. It's the kind of jokes your parents would make, but mixed into entirely inappropriate scenarios. It's the perfect storm of terrible taste and fantastically over-the-top lameness.
So he goes home to Texas to try to make cookies. His dream is to take down famous cookie mogul Chocolate Chip Charlie. I mean Famous Amos. Cue the baking fail montage.
How could you not love this movie? He's an ex-mercenary who wants to bake cookies. Whoever came up with this is a genius.
Or a madman. Just look at that hair. If this whole cookie thing doesn't work out, he could always get a job playing with Whitesnake. Nailed it. Traxx decides to scrap the cookie idea for now and heads to the crime-filled town of Hadleyville.
And we've entered our third movie. What's with the audio? Everything has this weird echo.
Some cops are bringing in a criminal. This guy almost gets knocked over. How?
Get my lawyers down here!
Traxx talks to the Hadleyville police chief. He informs him that he's there to be a town tamer. What's a town tamer, you ask? Well, a town tamer seems to be someone who goes into a town where their chief export is strip clubs and they kill almost everyone because justice. After a shootout, Traxx goes into an alley and rescues Tay Zonde.
Dieter.
Dieter? He asks Dieter to show him around town so he knows what places need to be blown up. First stop is Jerome's Stud Farm. That name sounds less like a whorehouse and more like a gay strip club.
Here's what I love about this movie. Half of these criminals are just people doing untoward things that aren't even illegal, or at the very least, things that probably don't warrant death. Like, Traxx is just running around killing innocent people and damaging property. And this is supposed to be considered hilarious. And the best part? It totally is!
He gets to the... Oh, that's terrible.
Terribly awesome.
Traxx has the uncanny ability to shoot people in the belt buckle. His guns also seem to have the magical ability to shoot without actually shooting anything.
You're the type that rattles easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't want this movie to get dark or anything. If Robot in the Family can kill a blind dude for comedy, so can Traxx.
Mafia boss Aldo Pellucci makes a not-so-menacing entrance. Wendell, one of Pellucci's henchmen, calls to tell him about Traxx. And this could be a new record for the amount of motherfuckers in one scene.
Hey man, this motherfucker kicked the shit out of every motherfucker on the motherfucking street. This motherfucker is
Pellucci's pissed, so he orders Traxx killed, Wendell killed, and for good measure, the barber killed. Mayor Alexandra Cray is holding a press conference about the incident.
Mayor, could it have been some kind of racial incident?
Very racial. Whoever did it hate at least one of everything, so no one race can bitch about discrimination.
That's awesome. I wish that worked in comedy. Decker informs the mayor about Traxx and how he plans to charge the town $10,000 for his cleanup work. Hey, bullets ain't cheap.
Sounds like a good return, what with all the property damage and everything. And wait, he hadn't paid Traxx yet and he shot up all those people at the whorehouse? Does he just kill people for fun?
Out in the woods, Traxx and Dieter are working on some new cookie flavors.
Oh man, I hope you love cookie humor, or this movie's totally gonna fall flat for you.
Tuna cough drop laxative. Chili con cookie. Well, if you think that's bad, you should try some of the healthy choice cookies. The next day, Dieter's picking up some groceries.
Nobody's gonna eat crab cookies.
Why not? They eat crab cakes.
He does have a valid point here. They drive away only to be chased by the elderly assassins.
As you do.
The assassins crash into a hospital gurney, and since this car is the suspension of a Suzuki Samurai, it flips over.
This scene is totally awesome. Just no shit's given at this point. The joke is that they run over someone on the way to the hospital, and our heroes totally let it happen to save their own asses. I laughed my butt off when this happened, and I don't even feel bad about it. I mean, that car rolls over her in the end. There's no way she isn't freaking dead.
Well, it's probably for the best. If she didn't die there, Traxx most likely would have shot her and the paramedics for not crossing at a crosswalk. Pellucci's having a board meeting to discuss the money he's losing because of Traxx. That painting is fantastic. It will look great next to the bison one from Street Fighter.
I kinda wish he'd had a bubble pipe or something to really tie this scene together.
Pellucci gets his crew to hire the group of killers known as the Guziks to take out Traxx. Meanwhile, just a normal day in Detroit.
I think it's time for our main characters to slaughter more potentially innocent people.
Merca.
Fuck yeah. Seriously though, they're just on the sidewalk doing nothing. How does he know they're criminals? This guy has a higher body count than Jason Voorhees.
The bumbling local cops even have their own wacky music.
You did. It'd probably be better to say we only hit him once.
They see Traxx and chase after him, only no they don't.
What is Traxx's plan here? Do everything illegally and then expect to get paid?
Hey, it worked for Charlie Sheen. The Guzicks are on their way to the US, but get stopped by the border guard, Stone David Duchovny.
The scenes with these guys are probably the least funny parts, and they go on just short of forever. Not one of them is hair enough to match Shadoe Stevens.
They blow up the building and make their way into the US. Pellucci's crime syndicate is brutal. They're committing Grand Theft comic book. Traxx and Dieter try to chase everyone out of a strip club, but they don't seem to get it.
Stripping, another apparently illegal activity.
Oh my god, why does this lady have a Metroid on her head? Oh, this is what it's like after you fly American Airlines.
Come back again, and you're dead. Good night. Good night, come back again, and I'll kill you.
Traxx breaks up a drug deal with a bomb and gets into the least epic rap battle ever.
You got about 3 seconds to learn to fly.
You got less than that before you die.
Well, flap your arms and suck some sky.
It's kind of great how Shadoe Stevens seems to know it sucks. Cop Rock's got nothing on this.
The citizens are very happy that Traxx is blowing up all the crime, which seems to be localized within porn stores and strip clubs, and not a single crack house.
Traxx, a celebration of murder, mayhem, and cookies. Prepare for some belly laughs.
The next day, the trash men are out. I don't know why, but this guy's voice makes me laugh.
Ah! Let's go!
Oh shit, they drove right into Silent Hill.
Holy shit. Just look at this. Take it all in. A wave of destruction, corpses hung off of lampposts. This is so dark. And the hilarity comes not from the actual jokes, but because that's what the film wants you to laugh at. What cinematic genius made this?
The Guzick brothers drive past a bunch of bicycle riders. First off, yes, this is wrong. Secondly, every single one of you has thought about doing this. The police chief is fielding questions from the press. Traxx shows up in a disguise. Can we even call this a disguise? What's his undercover name? Guy Incognito?
There's no disguising that hair. I imagine he probably has an incredibly strong cologne as well, called something like Manly Cookie.
Since the movie needed to get a little weirder, here's a random dance montage. There is nothing I like more after going on a murderous killing spree than dancing.
It's like the 80s has personified, jumped out of the television screen, and shot me in the face.
The mayor has a meeting with Traxx at the local library. She is immediately taken in by his charm and smooth sax music.
Why the library?
Research.
I find this movie to be highly unrealistic.
Well, if you squint and look at him the right way, he kind of resembles the guy off the cover of a romance novel. The mayor sexually assaults Traxx, and the spirit from the beginning of Ghostbusters shows up. If this scene goes on any longer, we'll see Slimer.
Not that this has to do with anything, but does Traxx own a shirt that isn't a lavender baby tee? Or does he just not change the entire time?
Meanwhile, at Snoop Dogg's house.
Can anybody tell me just who the hell this guy is?
In the Pellucci mansion, he's suffering from erectile dysfunction.
Not since The Amazing Bulk have I seen such fine jokes about erectile dysfunction.
What a depressing hand job. I feel like this should be accompanied with violin music. Traxx busts in, and what the hell is he smuggling under there?
He just smashes in on a motorcycle. It's great how mundane all of this over-the-top bullshit is.
Traxx tells him he has to be out of Hadleyville by tomorrow. Wait a minute, what's stopping him from just flat out shooting the guy? He's clearly got no problem with cold-blooded murder, so why kill all the thugs and then just warn their boss? Traxx heads back to camp. Why is he wearing a cape?
My question is, why wouldn't he be wearing a cape?
Touché. The Guzick brothers finally make it to town long after we've stopped caring why. Pellucci pays the Guzicks to kill Traxx. Since they can't just go and kill Traxx, they ride into town on horseback and kidnap a Little League team.
Of course.
Traxx is cooking up a batch of Spam cookies when Pellucci shows up and offers to buy his cookie business. He does have an interesting slogan for the company.
Buy these cookies, or I kill you.
Pellucci then inadvertently ends up killing himself.
Okay guys, but seriously, this is how he dies. I just can't even describe it without taking anything away from the experience.
You know what I think of your cookies? That's what I think of your cookies.
Let's move up when.
They seriously kill their main villain by blowing up his fart. That sounds like something I would write as a joke, but it seriously happens. How can you not laugh at that? It renders you speechless because it's simultaneously the most lame and awesome thing.
That's a death you would normally give to some throwaway character as a gag, but they use it to kill off the main villain? Brilliant! The mayor tells Traxx about the kidnapping. The Guziks show up and... really? This seems like one of the missions in Saints Row. Dieter gets shot and the Guziks get away. Amazing how now all of a sudden his aim sucks. He could shoot the gun out of the hand of a moving target before, but now he can't shoot 3 guys standing still.
Because the plot says so.
Dieter's bleeding out. Should we rush him to the hospital? Not until Traxx gets this one-liner out.
Oh, he's losing a lot of blood.
How much?
It looks like a liter.
Damn. Dieter lost a leader.
I love his expression. Are you fucking kidding me?
The Guziks take over the strip club/liquor store, Drunks Are Us.
Drunks Are Us. I can tell they spent about as much time on the jokes as I do. Laughs are us.
Traxx goes there and shoots the kids to freedom.
He's a regular Steven Seagal. This bit where he accidentally falls in on this old couple is great. By this point, you have to have embraced this film's lameness, and it turns around into being the most awesome thing.
You baking cookies?
Tuna macaroons.
I'll be back.
He breaks in and gets into a good old-fashioned shootout.
This is awesome. I mean, come on, Traxx is wearing a t-shirt of his own movie during this whole thing.
Well, we wouldn't want to forget what movie we were watching, now would we? That IKEA table is bulletproof.
Aw, dude, if he teams up with the IKEA monkey, I'd be set for life.
I can almost guarantee that if there ever was a sequel, it would have involved a monkey sidekick. The Guziks get away and Traxx chases after them. What's a good gunfight without a good car chase? Alright, how about a goofy car chase?
This is the part where the Dukes of Hazzard show up, right?
They really want us to know this is a GMC truck, even though it breaks down. We sure it's not a Ford? The Guziks decide to finish off Traxx with dynamite. He, of course, shoots it back into the car, and they blow themselves up.
So I guess fighting these two is considered a good climax for this film. Main bad guy, killed with his own fart. Finale fight, car chase that ends in suicidal stupidity.
The town is celebrating their victory.
Millions in property damage, hundreds if not thousands of people with friends and families dead, and all the town's hairspray entirely cleaned out. A job well done, Traxx.
Traxx decides to stay in town and takes the money from his town taming to open his cookie store, Snacks by Traxx. Even Famous Amos shows up to try out the competition. I don't think he has anything to worry about.
Let me try one of your peppermint prune cookies, please.
This is fantastic. He's still awful at it. The movie throws all expectations out the window.
So I guess the moral of this story is, alcohol and pornography bad, cold-blooded murder good. The movie was released in 1988 and was filmed mostly in Wilmington, North Carolina. The 70s and 80s were full of tough, take-no-shit cop films like Lethal Weapon, Dirty Harry, and Cobra, plus one really big one with a comedic element, Beverly Hills Cop. Traxx was an attempt to merge these films together with the ridiculous levels turned to 11. Writer Gary DeVore was no stranger to the subject matter, as he had previously written the Good Cop, Bad Cop movies Running Scared and Raw Deal, as well as the mercenary action film The Dogs of War. This was director Jerome Gary's first feature film. He previously did a documentary in 1986 called Stripper about a stripper convention and contest. I'm gonna have to see if I can find this one. The whorehouse Jerome's Stud Farm was put in there as a goof on the director. After Traxx failed to find an audience, he didn't do another thing until almost a decade later, in 2007, with the TV series On the Road in America. He's since gone on to be more successful as a producer, with documentaries like Life After Death and Generation Iron. Priscilla Barnes played the mayor. She was mostly known for her role as Terry on Three's Company. This was her first attempt to get back into movies after her runs on Three's Company, The Love Boat, and Hotel Attendant. She's since had a varied career with movies like Mallrats, License to Kill, and The Devil's Rejects. She even had a role in an episode of the awesome but forgotten TV show Time Traxx, which I'm pointing out simply because of the name and because more people need to be aware of the show. In 1990, Willard E. Pugh, who played Dieter, was playing the mayor himself. He played Mayor Kuzak in RoboCop 2. He was also Colonel Castle in The Guyver, Little Robert in the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, and Harpo in The Color Purple. Robert Davi played Palucci. With his distinct look and gravelly voice, he almost always plays a bad guy. Even in movies like Die Hard, where he was playing an FBI agent, he still had the bad guy element. Davi worked with producer Gary DeVore on Raw Deal, and they got along so well he brought him back for Traxx. Davi was happy to take the part since he was able to play almost a parody of his previous villains. Shadoe Stevens was a well-known DJ in Los Angeles until landing the job working as the announcer for the Hollywood Squares pushed him into the mainstream. De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, or DEG, the production company responsible for such classics as Evil Dead 2, Maximum Overdrive, and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, had high hopes for Stevens' movie career. They signed him into a 3-picture deal, with the first movie being Traxx. Unfortunately, many of the films DEG released around that time majorly underperformed, and the company went bankrupt, so his contract was dissolved. He eventually returned to the Hollywood Squares until leaving there to be the announcer for The Late Show with Craig Ferguson. When Stevens first signed on for the movie, it was supposed to be serious. It wasn't until the first day of shooting that he discovered they changed the whole tone of the film to become a comedy. Initially he was worried, but since he already has such an offbeat sense of humor, he decided to go with it. In keeping with the character, Stevens was the one who came up with the idea to make all the cookie flavors just awful. After the movie was released and it tanked, Stevens had asked the producers if he could recut the film. He felt that many of the best scenes were on the cutting room floor, and the film would benefit from having an alternate cut. Sadly, the producers turned down his request, and the film has been sitting in a vault ever since. In 1993, National Lampoon pretty much took the concept of Traxx and ran with it as Loaded Weapon 1, which is about an ex-mercenary cop played by Emilio Estevez and his glorious mullet, who joins with a very skinny Samuel L. Jackson to stop the mob from turning cocaine into cookies. Not exactly the same, but definitely more than a few similarities. Loaded Weapon did go more for the straight spoof, while Traxx went for the absurd mix of dark humor.
Traxx is one of those rare, so-bad-it's-good comedies, and that's really hard to pull off. Most of the humor is intentional, of course, but it's either incredibly lame or in extremely poor taste. Like, it's fighting both sides of the spectrum. Most of the jokes leave you slack-jawed and wondering what you just saw, a lot of the time out of sheer confusion.
Dicker.
But these things turn it around into being awesome. It's a great watch. And come on, they killed the bad guy with a fart. How can you not laugh at that? The mix of absurd humor played completely straight is sometimes successful, sometimes not, but always funny. Check it out, for real.
This movie is ridiculous in the best possible way.
Look out! Gonorrhea!
Everything is done to be intentionally over the top. Shadoe Stevens is a hilarious choice to be the invincible good guy because when he's not walking around blowing shit up, he's sucking in his gut or fluffing his hair. Yes, this movie is intentionally bad. The lead is an ex-mercenary cookie baker, for crying out loud. There are moments that are so bizarre, it's surreal. A shame the series wasn't able to continue. I would have really enjoyed seeing where they would have gone with the character. Oh well, for now I'd be happy with simply getting a DVD release.
$10,000 sounded like a real fair price. What do you think?
Cookie tamer. What a world!